Alrighty, how's it going, Browns fans? Welcome into another X's and Dogs podcast. Today we're talking about the 31-29 loss against the Tennessee Titans that we all watched today. Specifically for this game, I was at this one in person. I made it out to the Browns Stadium in what turned out to be a full game of nonstop snowfall in Cleveland, Ohio, but it was kind of weird because it really wasn't too cold and windy, and the snow also wasn't sitting on the ground at all. It was just melting right away. So it honestly was kind of a pleasant atmosphere in there, and it definitely was the type of snow game that isn't terrible to be at, isn't super cold and super, painful to sit through. Also, was also a pretty fun game to watch. Both of these teams scored a lot of points. In the first half, it was 17-14. And then obviously at the end of the game, you get the 31-29. So, it's not common to have 60 total points in a Browns game, really any season, but specifically this year with our offense and our defense. So to be at a game where there was a ton of points scored was actually pretty fun. Now, I guess getting to kind of the results, they definitely weren't as fun. But here's what I want to talk about to start today's podcast and kind of start the reaction of this game and where my mind went to right away after this game wrapped up. So, yes, the Browns do lose this game. But I actually think that there are a couple wins to take from this game. Obviously, there are some very negative situations. That's a given whenever you lose to a team with one win at home in this time of the season. But here's what I mean by there's a couple wins. First off, obviously Shedeur Sanders made some plays that he shouldn't. He made some throws that he shouldn't have made, and he had some mistakes in this one. But overall, Shedeur played really, really well. I thought this was the best game a quarterback has played in Cleveland this season, and I know the bar is very low, but that's still a positive mark for a rookie who was a fifth-round pick. And I'm going to get into Shedeur more in depth in just a little bit in the podcast here. So, give me a second on that. We'll come back to it, I promise. So, Shedeur played good, and the Browns lost this game, which is going to have serious, implications on the draft position more than likely come April. Because obviously the Titans at the time of the game started, I guess I should say, the Titans had the number 1 overall pick. So, whenever you are looking at it from the Browns' point of view, I know you don't want to ever say you want to lose games, but you have a Titans team coming into town who you're kind of. It's going to be one of the teams you're jockeying with to get, a top pick in this draft. And, you do end up losing this game. So not only do the Titans get that additional win, but also if the Titans now are able to get another win and, finish on with the same amount of wins as the Browns at the end of the season, obviously, assuming their strength of schedule will be higher, which it almost surely will, we will have the higher pick than them in that given situation. So that's kind of just a long way of explaining that this was a good result for draft position, and I think for where we are in this Brown season, to have a quarterback who played really well that is showing promise early through 3 games in his career, and then also losing a game that really doesn't mean anything apart from the fact that we might now have a better chance at a higher draft pick. Who will draft with that is still, to me, up in the air and not decided at all. So we'll get into that. Like I said, later whenever we talk about Shedeur a little bit more. But those are kind of my takeaways. It was a loss. It was a bad loss. Can't lose these types of games. But the Browns aren't going anywhere this season. The playoffs, now they're mathematically eliminated. To me, were eliminated a month and a half ago. We've really never had a real chance to go to the playoffs this season. So I just think, in the grand scheme of things, we'll come to the end of the season and be thankful that the Browns did not win this game. And they made it interesting and fun to watch for the fans watching on TV, the fans in the stadium. Although most of the fans left after the blocked punt. Like, once they blocked the punt in the fourth quarter there, and went out 14, pretty much the stadium emptied out almost entirely. But I did stay and watched the final couple Shedeur Sanders drives there, just because I had some pretty good seats for a good price, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna wait it out. Wait it out through kind of the rough weather there in Cleveland. But I think it was worth it because it turned out to be a pretty good game. Anyway, yeah, those are my overall takeaways. I think there can be some positives from this game. Now, I do want to talk about the negatives. And there are a number of negatives to talk about in this one. And we have to start with Kevin Stefanski, because for a guy who is, at this point, I think, truly coaching for his career, at least here in Cleveland, I think, I talked about it in my last podcast. Kevin will have an opportunity to go elsewhere and be a definitely an offensive coordinator. I think he'll get another shot at being a head coach at some point. But for a guy who's coaching for his career in Cleveland, where he's been at for 6 years, to make some of the decisions that he made today, it really just boggles my mind. And I want to start with the extra point going for two on the 2 touchdowns that ultimately kind of cost us the game. Now, look, I understand in the NFL, in the analytics world of things, there's a very strong belief that if you're down 2 scores, 2 touchdowns near the end of the game, you have to make the decision, do I want to go to overtime, or do I want to give myself, am I comfortable with going, to overtime, or am I more comfortable just going for one play, trying to get a 2-point conversion? If I don't get it, then I'll have another opportunity to, of course, tie it up after the next touchdown. But the downside of that is, unfortunately, what we saw today, where if you don't have the right plays dialed up in those moments, you're just going to end up losing the game. And for me, you have, I always thought, like, it's clear to me that the Browns are a better team than the Titans. And I know that sounds crazy that they just beat us, but like, the Titans don't have, at least defensively, they don't have the talent that the Browns have. So I would have taken the gamble to have the opportunity to win it in overtime, especially knowing that your offense would have had to have been playing pretty well to have scored 2 touchdowns to tie it up, which of course they did. So knowing that you have Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward was injured, but Carson Sweatshinger, Mason Gray, like that whole defense who's been really good for you this year. You have them, and then now you have this offense who's playing well in this game and has just scored 2 touchdowns in the last 5 minutes game time. In having both of those, I just think the right decision is to just kick the extra point. You're at home. Kick the extra point. Play for overtime. Now, I guess there is something to be said about just, is that Kevin Stefanski's coaching philosophy? Is he always just going to be aggressive in those situations? And if that was something that I thought was true, that he always does that, I think that I would have a little bit of a different opinion on it. But he wasn't even hyper aggressive today. And I want to point out a previous play in the game. I think it was in the first half, end of the first quarter, late in the first quarter, early in the second. The Browns had a 4th and 2. Well, so it was 3rd and 20. I think it was Harold Fannin caught kind of like a check down, and was able to stretch it out, get 18 yards, and make it a 4th and 2. And it was I believe at like around the Tennessee's 45-yard line. So easily like you're thinking about going for it territory. And Kevin decided not to go for it there. I want to say we were down like 10-14 at that time. So the game was still very much it was a very close game. Ultimately that's the type of decision that people forget about in a game like this, where there's so many other things that happened after that. But I remember being there and just thinking, you're a 3-9 team. Why not just go for it? So then you have that where you decide to punt it there on one hand, and then later in the game you have this super aggressive decision of trying to avoid overtime whenever you're at home. And to me, I just think that it's just not consistent enough in that regard. And I know it's only one game, but I truly think that Kevin Stefanski should hold a huge portion of blame for this one. There was just, you can't make those types of decisions and not have a significant portion of the blame be pointed at you after the game. So, ultimately, my takeaway from the Kevin Stefanski situation is he's working himself in the wrong direction for a guy who is on very thin ice, and I'm not even really sure if there is any ice that he's standing on at this point. And I don't think he's going to get fired tomorrow, but I really wonder if Jimmy Haslam doesn't already know that Kevin's going to get fired the day after the season ends. Because, that's where we are right now. If Shedeur and the offense didn't, catch some sparks there at the end of the game and make the score look a lot better, this was going to be a 31-14 or 31-17 loss against the Titans at home. And I think honestly, if the score ended that way, then Kevin would have been fired tomorrow, because that is really just embarrassing to put a performance out like that, at home against the worst team in the league coming into the game. Honestly, have the Titans even scored 30 points in another game this year? That's an interesting, if it has happened, it's been maybe one time. So that's just to me, the whole game plan today, from looking at it from Kevin's point of view, just I had a lot of questions about numerous decisions that he made. And now it's kind of hard to really tell who's making the decisions, because Tommy Rees is calling plays, but honestly, lump both of them in there. It's impossible to say if Tommy was the one who made the call on that to go for it, to go for 2. The way I envision it happening was it's Kevin's decision to say, no, we're going for 2 here, but then it's Tommy Rees's decision to call the play. So I don't know. There's blame for both, because then it leads you into the fact of the matter is, you're in a spot where, okay, you decided to go for 2. You chose the ultra aggressive route, which I already disagree with, but okay, you did it. It seems like maybe it'll work out, because Shedeur balls out in the last few minutes, gets you to a point where you just need to go for 2 to win this game here, or not win this game, to tie the game up here, potentially force overtime. And then you call a play where you take Shedeur off the field as there's a car, NASCAR driving around my neighborhood right now for some reason. I'm sure you guys can hear it. Anyway, you decide to take Shedeur off the field after he has scratched and clawed to get you back in this game. And he really, at that time, had a hot hand. Like, he was dealing. He just made that throw to Fannin, where probably one of the best throws of his early career here in the NFL. The guy got you to this point, and then you take him off the field to run a wildcat little end around that Judkins didn't even know what he was doing on. And I'm just like, I just, to me, I'm sure Tommy Rees was the one that said, we're going to call that play in that spot. But I'm sure Kevin has the authority to be like, no, we're not going to get too cute here. Just pick the best play that has the quarterback on the field. And he didn't make that call either. So there's blame for both of them, in that situation. And ultimately, here's the deal. I just think it's getting too little too late with Kevin, if it's not already. And that's kind of all I have to say about Stefanski. I've talked about Kevin's situation here numerous times. And in my last podcast, I went more in depth about kind of the more macro situation there and what things could look like in his career and kind of why the Browns and him could both be better off to just move on after this season. So go watch that if you're interested in hearing more about that situation. Anyway, now I do want to talk about Shedeur Sanders because this was a bright spot in this game. I'm just going to read some numbers, as I always do with kind of the quarterback position. Shedeur went 364 passing yards, so by far the most passing yards out of any quarterback this season for the Browns. I think the most passing yards since the Jameis Winston game, and he honestly might have had more than Jameis in that Broncos game last year. But it's close. Like that's the last time that there was somebody that was even close to that number. Also had 3 touchdowns, so these weren't just blank and like passing yards. Like he was scoring too, and then also 29 rushing yards, and then obviously the rushing touchdown as well. Now, I've been hearing a lot of people saying on Twitter and just kind of people's reactions about Shedeur's performance, that most of these yards were just trash time yards that are just kind of meaningless yards that he picked up and when the game was over. And I think that that's actually just patently ridiculous for a couple of reasons. First off, Shedeur had 250 yards before we were down by more than 4 points. Like he had like 230 maybe yards before we were down by more than 4 points. So he already was having a very good game. He had the ugly interception. He did. Like that's rookies throw interceptions, and that was a bad one. I've seen Josh Allen make that exact type of throw so many times. So some guys, I guess the thing is like some guys are able to learn from that, and that's something that Shedeur needs to do because Shedeur doesn't have the talent that Josh Allen does. He can't really afford in a lot of situations to make interceptions like that. But today he played so well other than that throw that I think it really negates the overall effect of that play. Yes, it was a bad throw and it did lead to 7 points. But whenever you're looking at Shedeur's performance overall, he has 2 touchdowns in the first half, 180 yards. We're up 17-14. And then early in the second half, the offensive line was just horrendous. I tweeted it at the time, and I said, the offensive line it's not even giving the Browns a chance to win this game. Like, we would... Go watch it. Go watch the game back. We would get the ball, 1st and 10. We would get like 6 yards on most of the time a short pass, a screen pass, something like that. Then we would run it for -2 yards, 1 yard maybe, and then we're sitting there on like a 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4, and we would either run it again or Shedeur would throw it, and it just wouldn't work out. Like this, somebody drops it, or Shedeur makes a bad throw. Happened 1 or 2 times. So like the offense was just not able, or the offensive line was not able to get any sort of success going in the run game. And if you just look at the stats, it's glaring. We had 61 rush yards. I think Judkins had 26 yards on 14 carries. It's a 1.9 average. Like the line just was not able to was not playing well enough to have any sort of sustained success in the run game. So, the important thing with that is Shedeur was able to play the way he was, A, with no run game, and then B, just having to make up for being behind the sticks frequently, and especially in the second half. It wasn't as prevalent in the first half, but in the second half, there was times I was watching the game, I'm like, dude, I just don't even know how we're going to score any points. And I've been there many times this season. So, oh God, it's just, sometimes just watching this offense is just painful. Definitely, there was spurts of that today, but the only reason the offense wasn't painful today overall was because of Shedeur, and his ability to make plays today. He made plays today. He made a number of throws that are impressive for any NFL quarterback to make, and especially impressive for a rookie to make playing in his 3rd game. And that's something that I think people forget a lot with Shedeur. He's only played, well, I guess this was technically his 4th game, but his 3rd start, his 3rd real start in the NFL. So, everyone wants to compare Shedeur to Cam Ward, and if you just look at the stats, it's not even close. Shedeur had a much better game. I get that Cam Ward won this one, but frankly, Cam Ward's team just did less to lose the game around him than the Browns did for Sanders. But anyway, the point there is that Cam Ward has played now 13 games, while Shedeur's played 3 or 4, however you want to look at it. So, like, yeah, there's times where Cam Ward looks a little more in routine with the offense, buttoned up, plays on time more. But the thing is he's been playing in this offense since, and he's known he was the starter in this offense since really he got drafted in April. And there's just way more experience for Cam to, build up that part of his game to be more effective than Shedeur. And ultimately the point there is that, like, there's just a wide range of opinions on Shedeur that to me are you can have these opinions, but today is just not the day to voice those opinions, because he played his butt off for the team, and I thought it was one of the best quarterbacking performances I've seen, in a Browns jersey since really Deshaun Watson came here. And so it's been 4 years, and I want to frame it to you like this. Let's say Shedeur Sanders was drafted. Let's say Shedeur was drafted in the first or 2nd round, and he played this exact game right here. I honestly believe, let's say his name was Fernando Mendoza. We draft him in April, and next season he plays this exact game right here. I can almost guarantee you the tune of people talking about that performance would be so much different, just because he was a 1st-round pick and there's more capital invested in him. So there really is a double standard there with Shedeur. that double standard definitely exists in other ways too, where like some excuses are constantly being made for Shedeur, and he the offensive line is terrible. He doesn't have any wide receivers. He doesn't have any first team reps. Like there's always that side of it too. But there's also the double standard in that he constantly gets unfair criticism, and this ideology that he can never be good enough to actually, for the Browns to really have a chance to move on with him as their quarterback and have any success that way. So I think both ends of that spectrum there are just very toxic for the overall Browns fan base, Shedeur fan base, you name it. And I think a middle ground of, this is a guy who just had one hell of a game in the NFL. Regardless, like the round he was picked in doesn't matter. He has almost 400 total yards and 4 touchdowns. It's a good game. That's all. You don't have to say that he's going to be a franchise quarterback. You don't have to say that the Browns need to move to decide to kick the idea of drafting a quarterback down the road because they need to see what Shedeur has next year. But you have to say that this was a good performance. It was a good performance. I can count probably 5 throws in this game. Like, for example, there's the throw that he made right before the interception. He literally checked out of a play into a wheel route. I think it was Harold Fannin ended up running kind of a wheel route. And then he ended up being in one-on-one coverage. Shedeur noticed it, got absolutely popped, and then dropped a dime right in the bucket for, what was it, a 30-yard pass? Of course, then he throws the interception after that, after getting the flag. But, like, there's just throws riddled throughout his performances like that to where it's clear the guy has something. And I want to check in on that stat again, where before Shedeur played, there was like one 30-plus yard pass play. How many are there now? Because I bet you I think there was 4 after the first 2 games that he played in, including the Ravens and the Raiders. So now it's got to be up to like 7, 8. And yeah, he has plays where you're like, what the hell are you doing? Where are you throwing it to? But the guy has plays where it's just, there's some impressive things going on. And I just sometimes think that the pendulum swings way too far into these corners with Shedeur, and there's no middle ground with him. And it's frustrating as a Browns fan who just wants the best chance for this team to win, dealing with kind of those sides and those camps on the Shedeur situation. Anyway, I just talked about Shedeur Sanders for 10 minutes, which I knew I would end up doing, but I didn't want to do that today because there's more things to talk about with this team and this performance and kind of the outlook of the season. Look, I don't think this was a bit, not this one performance is not going to, coerce the Browns into not drafting a quarterback. But I think if Shedeur can stack performances like this in the last 4 games, and this was definitely a step in the right direction, we had not seen him have a performance like this yet this season. He looked decent in the prior games, but this was a clear step in the right direction. And if he can continue to do, he doesn't need to throw for 360 yards every game, but if he can have a couple of touchdowns and be efficient and keep that quarterback rating close to what it's at 97.7 today. So if he can keep it right around there, I mean, he's going to put the Browns at least in a situation where they have to think long and hard about what they want to do in the draft. And I'm going to talk about that definitely more in this week's coming podcast, kind of what luxuries we will have as an organization if we don't have to spend that first pick on a quarterback. Like if we could trade back and get another pick in the second round, or maybe if somebody wants a quarterback, maybe we could even get a first round pick next year for it. Like it really starts to open up doors that could get this team and this roster improved so quickly. And I'll talk. I have more coming out on that. Definitely this week. So yeah, overall, I thought I give him an A- in this one. I haven't had a chance to look at the tape yet, obviously. And I think that this is definitely a game that tape will be important because he threw the ball so many times. Who knows how many things potentially he missed, but yeah, it was impressive watching it. Like the weather wasn't horrible, but it was wet. I mean, it was not ideal. It's not like he was playing in a dome out there. So positive, good step in the right direction for Shedeur. I'm happy for him. I'm happy for his fan base, and hopefully he can build on this and maybe start to get some wins. Who knows? Who knows if that's even beneficial for the Browns really at this point. If he plays like this every game and we lose every game, sign me up, because we got the number 1 pick and, maybe we have a quarterback. But maybe that means our defense is going downhill, but who knows? Anyway, let's talk about the defense. The defense was pretty bad in this one. I'm not going to really, bash them too much because just a lot of injuries there, man. Like, it sucks because for a while this year, this Browns team was actually super healthy all around. Like, there just wasn't a lot of injuries going on, in comparison to other teams in the NFL for sure. So, now we start to get some stacked injuries defensively. Like, we get the Malik Collins out for the year announcement last week. Denzel Ward missed a lot of time in this game. I'm sure he'll probably have a good chance of missing the next game or two. I think he had a calf. So those are always tricky. And do you want to risk that for a guy who's a cornerback and potentially, obviously we know calves can be pretty dangerous with the Achilles, and I think at a guy with Denzel's age, we could maybe just shut him down for the rest of the year. Honestly, put him on IR or something. Who knows? He honestly might have already said he'll be fine. I haven't seen the post game press conferences yet, but yeah, just a lot of injuries stacking up for this defense. And I think Mason Graham was just, I don't think he was out there as frequently as he normally is in this one. I think that rib injury definitely played a role in his performance today, because I thought he kind of got moved around a lot more than he has been in the past few weeks. And the Titans line is not good. So I thought that was just strange. They ran the ball really effectively on this defense. They had 184 rushing yards. Tony Pollard looked like prime Ezekiel Elliott with 161 yards and 2 touchdowns. So yeah, for some reason our defense just didn't really show up today, which is a little disappointing for a home game, because this is a defense that has been pretty consistent with being dominant in that stadium. And I think if they were just a little above average today, they would have won this game easily with the way Shedeur played and our offense played. But what do we know about the Browns? They don't play complementary. If the offense plays good, the defense doesn't play good. The special teams never plays good, which I'm going to talk about in a second. And that just results in bad football. That's a given with this team this year. I do want to make a shout out to Harold Fannin. What a player he is looking like he's going to turn in to be for this team. And that's a fantastic draft pick. He went 8 receptions for 114 yards and a touchdown today. Made some really, really nice plays today, like some great catches. I love watching him play. He's always fighting to get an extra 3, 4, 5, 6 yards. It's just really fun to watch. The guy's a baller. He'll be on this team for a while. Njoku went down with an injury as well in this one, unfortunately. So I think Fannin should get a little more runway to end the season here as probably like the more solidified tight end one, if he wasn't already. So yeah, the defense overall, switching back to the defense, was not very good. It is what it is, man. We're getting to the point in the season where it can probably get kind of hard to really put 110% out there whenever you're on a team as not competitive as the Browns. So, yeah, I think the defense cost them today, and ultimately the special teams was once again just horrendous, just a mess of a unit. Every day that goes by, it just amazes me that Bubba Ventrone continues to have a job in the NFL. It's just so shocking to me the way he week in and week out this season has put out there just a horrible special teams unit, and they do it in so many ways too. If it's not the punting, it's the kick returning. If it's not the kick returning, it's the punt returning. If it's not the punt returning, it's the field goal kicking. It's just nonstop with this special teams blunders that cost us so many times in games. That it's just so frustrating. And as we move into further seasons, that has to be something that we just don't worry about. You shouldn't have to sit there and be like, okay, the special teams is doing really good today. You just shouldn't notice them. There's not really a high bar for special teams. It's just catch the punts, don't fumble them, make your kicks that you should make. You don't have to make a 60-yard field goal. Just make the ones you should. Know the rules, like don't do the toe tap bullshit where you're on the 5-yard line, and nobody will have any complaints. You'll be fine. But that's just not what we have going on here, and they need to get Bubba Ventrone could not be removed from that building quick enough. And I say that coming off the press conferences this past week where he talked and just threw players under the bus. Like, yeah, we know these guys are not... There's been some injuries and stuff with special teams guys this year. Dude, like, it's your job to get these guys ready to play. None of these guys are starters. They're all kind of role player guys. Just get them ready to field a punt, man. Make sure they understand the rules of a kickoff. I don't know. The special team stuff to me is just... It just bothers me more than anything in as a Browns fan. And I cannot continue to watch Bubba Ventrone coach that unit for much longer. So, like I said, he cannot be removed from his duties quick enough, in my opinion. All right, so I rambled on this one's almost 40 minutes. So I rambled on quite a bit about this game here. A lot of takeaways to get into kind of with the draft and looking forward onto things that I want to talk about more specifically in later podcasts. And I will do so. So make sure you guys check back in this week to hear more about all that. Yeah, man, overall, the end of this season, man, could not come quick enough for the Cleveland Browns and all the fans out there. So, another loss means some good things for the draft, means some good things for the position and the ability to recover some assets. So that's kind of my biggest takeaway. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in today. Hopefully you guys were at least able to enjoy a high-scoring Browns game like I talked about earlier. It's a pretty fun watch overall. I know we lost, but we're used to that. And yeah, hopefully you had a great weekend. Hopefully you have a great week coming up, getting close to holiday season. And I'll be right here with you talking Browns throughout it. So I'll see you all in the next podcast. Take it easy. Bye-bye.